Under Paris. I'm standing on a sidewalk in the early morning. The great avenues of Paris are silent, and the shops are closed. From a bakery comes the smell of fresh bread. Suddenly, a man with long hair and a lamp on his head appears from a hole in the sidewalk. He is soon followed by a young woman holding a lantern. Mud covers their boots. The man places the iron cover over the hole and takes the woman's hand. Together, they run down the street, smiling. The couple had been exploring the tunnels beneath the city. When the Romans occupied Paris, they cut out stone from deep within the earth to build their city and make sculptures. Later, the French used more stone to construct the Notre Dame Cathedral, the Louvre, and many other buildings. This left huge underground tunnels upon which part of the city now stands. Once used for growing mushrooms, burying the dead, or as hiding places during wartime, today they are mostly forgotten, except by cataphiles, people who love to go down into the tunnels below Paris, even though it's actually not permitted. A city rediscovered. Exploring the underground city first became a trend in the 1970s and 80s. It was easier to enter the tunnels then, because there were many more open entrances through forgotten doorways and into catacombs, rooms filled with bones. The bones had been moved into the tunnels to solve the problem of crowded cemeteries. By the end of the 1980s, most of the entrances were shut, and police regularly walked the tunnels. However, there are still cataphiles, like the couple I saw that morning. And for those who dare, the underground is an exciting place to meet, have parties, perform for each other, or create art. Underground explorations. My own exploration began beneath the old Paris Opera House, where sewer workers showed me a 55-meter-long underground pond, a pond that actually had fish in it. Later, at France's National Bank, officials guided me below to an amazing room filled with 2,600 tons of gold. As cataphiles are the best guides, I then asked Dominique and Yopi, experienced cataphiles, to give me a tour. Descending into the underground through a secret entrance beneath a bridge, we walked for hours through catacombs and galleries of huge, bright paintings. Yopi dove into water-filled passages to see where they led. We stopped to rest in a room with stone furniture, where Yopi told me many people come down here to party, some to paint, some people to destroy, or to create, or to explore. We do what we want here. We don't have rules. New York's underside. A dangerous job. Since I was a boy, I have always looked down open manholes with curiosity, so I welcomed the opportunity to explore and write about the world beneath New York City. With a group of 11 sandhogs, the nickname for the workers who build New York's underground, I boarded a slow, shaky elevator lit by a single light bulb. Slowly, we went down a shaft dug through 200 meters of rock. The sandhogs were building a new tunnel to bring water into the city. The present tunnel system carries more than 5.6 billion liters of water every day. That's enough water to fill more than 2,200 Olympic-sized swimming pools. As we descended, it got dark and the air got cool. I looked up into darkness and down into deeper blackness. Then the elevator stopped and everyone got out. Then came the hard part, climbing another 10 meters down a long, slippery metal ladder. At the bottom was a dark tunnel filled with dust and smoke. Sandhogs were using explosives like dynamite to cut through the solid rock. The tunnel extends slowly, only 4 meters a day, and with each day come new dangers. Sandhogs live in constant fear of being hurt by sharp pieces of exploded rock. Their bodies are covered in such scars. Why do this work? I asked Brian Gallagher, a sandhog for 16 years. Brian's father was a sandhog too, but it is not tradition that brought him here. It's the money, he said. An experienced sandhog earns over $100,000 a year. The rewards are well-deserved. A sandhog's chances of dying on the job are far greater than those of an above-ground construction worker or even a New York City police officer. Everything down here can kill you, one sandhog said. They know many more workers will die before the tunnel is completed. A river of sewage. On another trip below the city, sewer worker Jeff Kwame showed me how the city's sewage is kept flowing smoothly. We went down a manhole wearing plastic bodysuits, gloves, and tanks of air. Everything around us was wet and slippery as we climbed carefully down 12 meters and then stopped on a narrow concrete step. In front of me was a fast-moving river of sewage, nearly 2 meters wide. It smelled awful. I asked Kwame, "What happens if you fall in and you're not attached to a rope?" He said, if you didn't pull yourself out, you'd drown in the sewage. But unlike the dangers sandhogs face, such situations are rare. As we move through the sewer, Kwame seems calm and confident, but it's still a terrifying thought. Later, as we left the darkness and danger below, Kwame joked, "See any alligators?" Over the years, there have been stories about giant alligators living in the sewers. I tell Kwame that in 1935, the New York Times reported an alligator was pulled from a sewer. He still didn't believe it, and we laughed together as we climbed back to the surface.
Cities beneath the sea. For uncounted generations, trillions upon trillions of tiny creatures called coral polyps have lived and died, leaving behind a substance called limestone. A building material prized throughout the history of mankind, limestone was used to construct the Great Pyramids of Egypt, as well as countless churches and castles. Even today, crushed limestone is used to make the cement with which modern structures are built. For this, coral polyps are sometimes called the animals that helped make the world. Yet the greatest limestone structures in the world are built underwater by the coral polyps themselves. We call them reefs. They are larger in scale than buildings made by any other living beings, including humans. A variety of life. Indeed, a living coral reef is remarkable. A city beneath the sea, filled with a rich variety of life. Coral reefs thrive in warm, shallow oceans near the equator and are among the world's most colorful places. Each reef is full of brilliantly colored fish and coral, forming wonderful patterns. In addition to their beauty, the reefs are an important food source for fish and for humans. In fact, reef fish make up a significant percentage of the global fish catch. Threats to coral reefs. Various human activities can cause great harm to the world's coral reefs. For example, reefs can be damaged when the coral is taken for use in building materials, jewelry making, or to fill aquariums. Illegal fishing methods like blast and cyanide fishing also harm the reefs. These methods can help fishermen get a good catch, but their negative effects on the reefs are significant. Blast fishing involves setting off bombs in the water to kill as many fish as possible. The blasts kill most living things nearby and cause damage to the reef structure. In cyanide fishing, fishermen release liquid cyanide, a very dangerous and deadly chemical, into the reef. As a result, the fish become stunned. This makes them easy to collect. The fishermen can then sell them for big money to the aquarium market or for consumption in restaurants. Meanwhile, the reef is damaged by the cyanide, which kills large numbers of coral polyps, and by the fishermen who break apart the reef looking for the stunned fish. Another threat to a reef is water pollution. When floods in Australia covered the Great Barrier Reef with dirty fresh water, the quality of the water changed, and chemicals killed the reef life. This is happening to many reefs around the world. In addition, due to global warming, many reefs have become sick, turning white in a process known as coral bleaching. Reasons for hope. These threats to coral reefs are very serious, but there is reason to hope that they will survive. If we take steps toward coral reef conservation, it is likely that these tiny creatures, which survived natural threats for millions of years, will be able to rebuild the reefs that so much ocean life depends on.
The truth about great whites. Shark attack. In sunny California, Craig Rogers was sitting on his surfboard, scanning the distance for his next wave, when his board suddenly stopped moving. He looked down and was terrified to see a great white shark biting the front of his board. "I could have touched its eye with my elbows," says Craig. The shark had surfaced so quietly, he didn't hear a thing. In his horror and confusion, he waved his arms and accidentally cut 2 of his fingers on the shark's teeth. He got off the opposite side of his surfboard into the water. Then, with Craig in the water, blood flowing from his fingers, the 5-meter-long shark simply swam away. Over 100 shark attacks happen each year. Of these, 1/3 are said to be great white attacks. As a result, great whites are often categorized as man-eaters, and thought to hunt and kill humans. However, this is factually inaccurate, since great whites rarely kill their human victims. In fact, a person has a greater chance of being killed by lightning than by a great white. With frightening jaws that hold around 300 teeth arranged in several rows, a great white could very easily kill a person. Yet surprisingly, most great white victims live to tell the tale. Shark researchers are trying to comprehend the reasons great whites attack people and why most of those people manage to escape a horrible death. One of the most common explanations for great white attacks is that great whites don't see well. It is thought that they often mistake a person for a seal or a sea lion, a very tempting snack to a great white. But there is reason to doubt this. Some research now shows that great whites can actually see and identify seals very well. When attacking seals, great whites shoot up to the surface and bite with great force. However, when they approach humans, they often move in slowly and bite less hard. They take a bite, feel them over, then move on, says Peter Klimley, author of The Secret Lives of Sharks. Shark experts like Klimley hypothesize that great whites attack because they are actually curious animals that like to investigate things. They believe that it's possible that great whites use their bite not just to kill and eat, but also to gather information. According to this idea, once a great white identifies what it is biting, it simply lets go. Even though such experiences are unlucky for people like Craig Rogers, perhaps when sharks bite surfboards, other objects, or even people, they are likely just trying to learn what they are.
The flower trade. When you purchase fresh-cut flowers, do you think about where they came from? It might make sense to think they were grown somewhere nearby. The reality, though, is that the cut flower trade is increasingly international. Today, thanks to airplanes and high-tech cooling systems, even the most delicate flower can be exported and sold in a florist thousands of kilometers away from where it was grown. The cut flower leader. The country that dominates the world cut flower trade is the Netherlands. It handles about 60% of the world's cut flowers, and its auction houses are very large indeed. Aalsmeer, near Amsterdam, is an auction house in the sense that Tokyo is a city, or Everest a mountain. About 120 soccer fields would fill its main building. 19 million flowers are sold here on an average day, including roses, lilies, and, of course, tulips. The Netherlands is also a world leader in developing new flower varieties. Dutch companies and the government invest a considerable amount of money in flower research. Their scientists look for ways to lengthen a flower's vase life, to strengthen flowers to prevent them from being damaged while traveling, and also to strengthen the natural fragrance of the flowers. The benefits of climate. Despite the Netherlands' dominance of the flower market, there are many places with a better climate for growing flowers, and the climate of Ecuador is almost perfect. Mauricio Davalos is the man responsible for starting Ecuador's flower industry. Our biggest edge is nature, he claims. Our roses are the best in the world. With predictable rainy periods and 12 hours of sunlight each day, Ecuador's roses are renowned for their large heads and long, straight stems. Every year, Ecuador sells about 500 million flowers to the U.S. alone. The industry has brought employment opportunities and a stronger economy to regions of the country. My family has TV now. There are radios, says Yolanda Quisp, 20, who picked roses for 4 years. To others, the increasingly international nature of the flower trade is very bad news. In recent years, local growers in the U.S. faced huge competition from international flower companies, and many lost their businesses. Lena Hale, an independent rose grower in California, said her father had predicted the situation in the 1980s. "I see a freight train coming down the track," he warned her, "and it's coming straight towards us." From Colombia to the U.S. How a rose travels from mountain to vase in just 3 days. Tuesday, 7 a.m. Roses are cut in the cool mountain air of Colombia and moved quickly to indoor cooling houses. Tuesday, 1 p.m. Workers categorize the roses based on size, stem, length, shape, and color. Wednesday, 6 a.m. Roses are boxed and sent to Bogota Airport for the 3.5-hour flight to Miami. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Roses are checked by officials and then transported by truck, train, or plane. Thursday, 4 p.m. Roses arrive at large markets in major U.S. cities where they are purchased by flower sellers.
The power of perfume. A promise in a bottle. Perfume, says expert perfumer Sophia Groisman, is a promise in a bottle. That promise might be reflected in a perfume's name, joy or pleasure, for example. Millions of dollars are spent on the marketing of a perfume so that customers connect luxury, attraction, or a certain attitude to a fragrance. Fragrances can have power over our thoughts and emotions. Scientists believe memory and smell are closely connected in our brains, and that certain aromas have the power to call up deep memories. Perfume makers are especially aware of this and use aromas that touch us deeply. In the perfume world, an essence is a material with its own special aroma. Some are natural and derived from flowers and plants, for example. Others are synthetic copies of rare or difficult-to-obtain essences. Perfume authority Harry Fremont says a good fragrance is a balance between naturals and synthetics. Naturals give richness and roundness. Synthetics, backbone and sparkle. Hundreds of new perfumes are put on the market every year. Of these, few become successful. It's a risky business. A company introducing a new scent can easily run through a budget of $20 million. Profits, however, can be very high. One successful fragrance, CK1, from designer Calvin Klein, made $250 million in its first year. Image and marketing. In a Paris perfume store, a building of shining stone, metal, and glass, famous perfumes are displayed and guarded like the works of art in the nearby Louvre Museum. Salespeople are dressed smartly in black, and each type of perfume is sold in a distinctively shaped bottle. In perfume sales, the emphasis is on presentation at least as much as on the product. So, naturally, France's main competitor in the global perfume market is the United States, where image is all important. Celebrity-branded scents fill the market, each preceded by floods of print ads and TV appearances designed to create hype. Even sports celebrities, like baseball star Derek Jeter, are creating their own fragrance brands. It is easy to be confused about which perfume to buy. Perfumer Annie Bouzantian offers this advice: you really can't get an idea whether a perfume works or not until you wear it. It's like the difference between a dress on the hanger and a dress on your body, says Bouzantian. Though Fremont adds, your first impression is often the right one.
Marco Polo in China. The Polos, Marco, his father Niccolo, and his uncle Maffeo, had been traveling for 3.5 years when they finally achieved their objective: a long-awaited meeting with the powerful Mongol leader Kublai Khan. The historic event took place in 1275 at the Khan's luxurious summer capital in Chengdu, in what is now northern China. Kublai Khan was surprisingly informal as he greeted his tired guests. "Welcome, gentlemen. Please stand up. How have you been? How was the trip?" Marco Polo's trip had, in fact, started more than 9,000 kilometers, 5,600 miles away in Venice when he was just a teenager. His father and uncle already knew Kublai Khan from a previous visit 5 years earlier, when they had spent a short time in Chengdu. On this second trip, the Polos stayed for 17 years before they returned home. They made themselves useful to the Khan and undertook various missions and tasks for him. It is likely that the Khan considered it an honor that these Europeans, who were rare in China, had made this extremely difficult journey, and he took the opportunity to make good use of their skills and knowledge. While he was in the service of Kublai Khan, the most powerful man in people and in lands and in treasure that ever was in the world, Marco Polo was able to learn and experience many things that were new to Europeans. In his travel journal, he wrote that Kublai Khan's palace was the greatest he had ever seen. He admired the Khan's recently completed new capital, Daidu, whose streets were so straight and so broad. The city was located in what is now the center of Beijing, and Kublai Khan's city planning can still be perceived in the straight, broad streets of China's modern capital. We learn from Marco Polo that in the administration of his empire, Kublai Khan made use of a fast and simple message system. Horse riders spaced every 40 kilometers allowed messages to cover 500 kilometers a day. As soon as one horse had run 40 kilometers, the next horse would run the next 40 kilometers, and so on. Marco also learned the secret of asbestos cloth, which is made from a mineral and doesn't catch fire. Paper money also took him by surprise, since it was not yet in use in the West at that time. Homes were heated with black stones, which burn like logs. Those stones were coal, unknown in most of Europe, and were so plentiful that many people had a hot bath 3 times a week. Although the Khan did not want his visitors to leave, the Polos finally received permission to return home in 1292. Marco continued his observations while on the ocean voyage by way of Sumatra and India. After he returned home, Marco completed a book about his trip, full of details about his amazing cultural experiences. It was probably the single greatest contribution to geographical knowledge ever made to the West about the East.
The Travels of Ibn Battuta. The Long Journey. I left Tangier, my birthplace, the 13th of June, 1325, with the intention of making the pilgrimage to Mecca, to leave all my friends, both female and male, to abandon my home as birds abandon their nests. So begins an old manuscript in a library in Paris, the travel journal of Ibn Battuta. Almost 2 centuries before Columbus, this young Moroccan set off for Mecca. Returning home 3 decades later, he is now regarded as one of history's great travelers. Driven by curiosity, he journeyed to remote corners of the Islamic world, traveling 3 times as far as Marco Polo, through 44 modern countries. Though little celebrated in the West, his name is well known among Arabs. In his hometown of Tangier, a square, a hotel, a cafe, a ferry boat, and even a hamburger are named after him. Prior to his adventures traveling the world, Ibn Battuta studied in Mecca for several years. However, the urge to travel soon took over. He traveled to India, seeking profitable employment with the Sultan of Delhi. On the way, he described his group being attacked in the open country by 80 foot soldiers and 2 horsemen. We fought, killing one of their horsemen and about 12 of the foot soldiers. I was hit by an arrow and my horse by another, but God, in His grace, preserved me. We carried the heads of the slain to the castle of Abu Bakr and suspended them from the wall. In Delhi, the Sultan gave him the position of judge based on his studies at Mecca. But the Sultan had an unpredictable character, and Ibn Battuta was soon looking for an opportunity to leave. When the Sultan offered to finance a trip to China, Ibn Battuta agreed. He set off in 3 ships, but misfortune struck while he was still on shore. A sudden storm grounded and broke up 2 ships. Scattering treasure, the storm drowned many people and horses. As he watched, the 3rd ship, with all his belongings and slaves, one carrying his child, was carried out to sea and never heard from again. After a lifetime of incredible adventures, Ibn Battuta was finally ordered by the Sultan of Morocco to return home to share his wisdom with the world. Fortunately, he consented and wrote a book that has been translated into numerous languages, allowing people everywhere to read about his unparalleled journeys.